There are moments when the world feels louder than it should, not with sound, but with expectation, with eyes that seem to wait, with unspoken questions that hover in the air and never quite leave. In those moments, effort can feel strangely heavy, not because it is too much, but because it seems unseen. You may be doing what you know is right. You may be waking each day with quiet resolve, placing one careful step in front of another, and still something feels off. The room feels crowded, even when you are alone. Thoughts echo, doubt lingers, and you begin to wonder why the silence around you feels so full. They may not say much at first. Sometimes they don't need to. A look is enough, a pause, a small shift in tone. It plants a question in the mind. Is this worth it? Am I missing something everyone else sees? Or am I the only one still holding on? There is a special kind of loneliness that comes from continuing without applause. It is not loud or dramatic. It sits quietly beside you. It waits while you work. It follows you home. It asks nothing, yet demands to be felt. And when night comes and the noise of the day fades, it speaks the clearest. Why does persistence feel heavier when no one notices? Why does doing the right thing sometimes feel like walking against the wind, unseen and unacknowledged? In those early moments, the heart often looks outward. It listens for reassurance. It searches for a sign, a nod, a word, anything that says you are not alone in this. But the world does not always answer when we ask softly. Sometimes it remains still, almost indifferent. And that silence can feel like rejection. Yet, there is something else happening beneath the surface. Something quieter, something slower. While the mind wrestles with doubt, the soul begins to observe. It notices the breath, the steady rhythm of continuing, the simple truth that effort does not vanish just because it is unseen. There is a lesson hidden here, though it does not announce itself. It waits patiently. It understands that some truths can only be learned when nothing distracts us, when praise is absent, when approval does not arrive, when the only witness to our persistence is ourselves. At first, this can feel unfair, almost cruel. Why should strength be tested in silence? Why should sincerity go unnoticed? These questions are natural. They rise gently, like mist, and linger without clear answers. But if you sit with them long enough, without rushing away, you may begin to sense a shift, a subtle change in how the quiet feels. It no longer presses as hard. It no longer demands explanation. Instead, it becomes a space, an open place where something deeper can take root. This is where the story truly begins, not with noise or recognition, but with a quiet awareness, a realization that the world does not need to see everything for it to matter. That effort has weight, even when carried alone. That persistence, when chosen freely, shapes something strong and steady inside. In this still beginning, nothing is proven yet. No victory is claimed. There is only presence. A person standing quietly with their own resolve, listening to the soft truth forming within. And though it may not feel powerful now, this quiet moment holds more strength than it appears. Because what grows in silence is not easily shaken. There comes a time when silence is no longer empty. It becomes crowded with meaning, with things unsaid, with intentions that are felt but never acknowledged. This is often when misunderstanding begins. Not with open conflict, but with distance. A quiet space where two sides stop seeing the same truth. They may look at you and think they understand, but their understanding is shaped by their own fears, their own expectations, their own need for quick answers. They see only the surface, the stillness, the lack of reaction, and from that they begin to draw their own conclusions. To them, silence can look like weakness. Calm can look like indifference. Restraint can look like emptiness. And so they fill the gaps with their own stories, stories that are easier for them to believe. You feel it when it happens, not sharply but slowly. A change in how you are treated, a shift in the air, words spoken around you, not to you, questions asked without waiting for answers. And suddenly you are no longer just quiet. You are misunderstood. There is a quiet pain in this. Not because they are wrong, but because you know how much effort it takes to remain still, how much discipline it takes to hold back words, how much strength it takes to observe rather than react. Yet none of that is visible from the outside. You may wonder if you should explain yourself, if a few careful words could clear the fog, if speaking up might restore balance. These thoughts come naturally. The heart wants to be seen as it truly is. It wants to be known. But there is hesitation too, a sense that explaining would not change what they choose to see. That clarity offered to closed eyes remains unseen. And so you wait. You watch, you listen. In this waiting, something uncomfortable happens. You begin to see how easily people mistake silence for surrender, how quickly they assign meaning where there is none, and how little room there is for quiet strength in a world that prefers noise. This can feel isolating, like standing in the middle of a story you did not write, watching others decide how it ends. You may feel the urge to defend your intentions, to correct the image they hold of you, not out of pride, but out of a simple desire for fairness. Why should quiet effort be misread? Why should patience invite doubt? Why does choosing not to react make others uneasy? These questions do not demand answers. They simply sit with you, reminding you that misunderstanding is often the price of restraint, that those who move slowly are often judged by those who rush. And yet, there is a subtle truth hidden here as well. Being misunderstood reveals something important. It shows who listens deeply and who listens only for confirmation. It shows who values noise over presence. And it shows you, quietly, how strong your center truly is, because it is easy to remain calm when you are praised. It is easy to be patient when you are understood. But to remain steady when your silence is questioned, when your intentions are doubted, when your stillness is misread, that is something else entirely. In these moments you are invited inward, away from their interpretations, away from their assumptions, toward a quieter place where your reasons remain intact, even when your image does not. You begin to notice that misunderstanding does not erase truth. It only reveals how rare it is to be seen clearly, and slowly, gently, you may realize that not everyone needs to understand you for your path to remain valid. This realization does not come with relief at first. It comes with acceptance, a soft settling of the heart, a recognition that clarity within matters more than clarity outside. And so you continue. Not loudly, not defensively, but with a deeper awareness of your own silence, knowing now that being misunderstood is not a failure of character, but often a sign of quiet depth, still forming. There is a moment, often unnoticed, when something shifts inside. It does not arrive with certainty or relief. It arrives quietly, like a thought that feels older than words. It comes when the noise around you no longer pulls as hard, and the urge to explain begins to soften. You may still feel the misunderstanding. It does not disappear, but it changes shape. It no longer presses against the chest. It no longer demands an answer. Instead, it becomes something you can look at from a distance. In this space, you begin to notice the pause, the space between what is said and what is felt, between what happens and how you respond. This pause is small, but it holds weight. It is here that stillness reveals its strength. You realize that not every moment asks for a reaction. Not every word needs a reply. Not every judgment requires correction. Some things lose their power when they are met with silence. At first, this realization feels uncertain. Silence has often been associated with absence, with retreat, with loss. But now it feels different. It feels deliberate, chosen, held with care. You begin to sense the silence can be a form of presence. That restraint can carry more meaning than expression. That holding back is not the same as giving up. There is a quiet confidence in knowing what does not need to be said, a steady calm in choosing not to prove what you already understand. and slowly the need to be seen begins to fade, replaced by the need to remain whole. You may notice how your body responds. The breath becomes easier, the shoulders loosen, the mind no longer races to keep up with imagined conversations. There is more room now, more space to observe without judgment. They may continue to misunderstand. Their stories may remain unchanged, but something important has shifted. Their interpretations no longer define your inner state. Their assumptions no longer reach as deeply. This is not indifference, it is clarity, a recognition that reacting often hands power to what does not deserve it. That silence, when chosen with awareness, protects what matters most. You begin to understand that inner power is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not seek agreement. It simply remains. There is strength in not rushing to fill the quiet. Strength in letting moments pass without claiming them. Strength in trusting that what is real does not need constant defense. This understanding grows slowly. It does not push. It settles, like a deep root finding its place beneath the surface, unseen but steady. You may still feel emotion rise at times. This is natural. Silence does not mean absence of feeling. It means allowing feeling to move through without becoming action, without becoming reaction. In this way, silence becomes a teacher. It shows you how to listen more deeply, not just to others, but to yourself. It reveals patterns. It softens impulses. It sharpens awareness. You start to see how often reaction comes from fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of being misjudged, fear of losing control of the story. And you begin to see that silence loosens fear's grip. What remains is something quieter and stronger, a sense of self that does not shift with every opinion, a center that stays steady even when the ground around it feels uncertain. You may ask yourself, what if silence is not weakness, but trust? Trust in your own understanding, trust in time, trust that what matters will remain even without noise. This question does not need an answer. It simply opens a door. Through that door, you step into a deeper calm, not because everything is resolved, but because you no longer need it to be. You have learned that power does not always move outward. Sometimes it rests. And in that rest, something unbreakable begins to form over time. Something settles. Not suddenly, not with certainty, but gently. The kind of settling that happens when a long walk finally slows and the body remembers how to rest. The silence that once felt heavy now feels familiar, almost kind. You no longer feel the same pull to explain yourself, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand what would be lost in the saying. Some truths grow thinner when spoken too often. Some meanings weaken when they are carried outside too soon. There is a quiet dignity in allowing your life to speak in its own time, in letting actions remain unannounced, in trusting that what is steady does not need to rush toward recognition. They may still watch. They may still wonder. Their thoughts may continue to move in directions you cannot follow. But this no longer disturbs the inner ground you stand on. You have learned that clarity does not depend on agreement. Silence now is no longer a response. It is a way of being. It moves with you, not as distance, but as presence. A calm companion that reminds you to listen before you speak, to feel before you act. You notice how differently the world appears from this place. Moments feel slower, words feel lighter, reactions lose their urgency. There is space between impulse and action, and within that space, peace quietly lives. Peace is not excitement. It does not rise or fall. It does not ask to be shared. It simply remains, steady and unremarkable, yet deeply grounding. You may still be misunderstood at times. That has not changed. But now, misunderstanding passes through you without leaving a mark. It does not cling. It does not echo. It arrives and leaves, like a sound fading into distance. There is strength in this, though it may never be noticed. A strength that does not seek to be admired. A strength that protects without building walls. A strength that allows you to remain open without becoming vulnerable to every passing opinion. You begin to sense that self-respect grows quietly. It is not claimed, it is practiced. Each moment of restraint adds to it. Each choice not to react deepens it. Life continues as it always does, with its uncertainties, with its small tensions and quiet joys. But you move through it differently now, more inwardly anchored, less dependent on external clarity. There is a freedom here that is difficult to describe. The freedom of OT needing to be understood by everyone. The freedom of letting go of imagined judgments. The freedom of standing calmly within your own awareness. You may look back and see how much energy was once spent trying to correct impressions, to manage perceptions, to be seen clearly. And you may feel a gentle release, knowing that this effort was never required for peace to exist. What remains is simple: presence, attention, a steady sense of self that does not ask the world for permission to be whole. This is not an ending. It is a continuation, a quieter way forward, one where growth does not announce itself and strength does not raise its voice. As the quiet deepens, you may notice something unexpected. The silence you chose now gives something back. It offers clarity. It offers rest. It offers a place where nothing needs to be proven. And in that place, you are enough without explanation.